meat delicacy you can possibly eat in this life. The shiny juicy steaks with mushrooms on top. And by the way, bros, when we're talking about steaks, for my American bros, I don't know how you can eat rare, medium rare. I need to eat well done meat. Like, what the hell is up with that? I'm from Europe, so I don't know if like it's a cultural thing or what, but stop eating raw cow, for God's sake. Anyway, with this little rant over, let's go back to the story. Our protagonist even put some effort into grilling the meat differently according to the different tastes his friends have. For Eliza, he made it well done. My girl, for himself, he made it medium well, and for Pepesh, he made it medium rare. You see, Pepesh is eating medium rare and he's a big child, so if you like medium rare meat, you're like Pepesh, and I'm like Eliza, the alchemist who fails at that. Anyways, we see Pepesh ungratefully sulking for not getting it a bit raw, and each one looks delicious in its own way. Eliza is flabbergasted holding this food in her hands, as it feels like she's holding something really special worthy of respect, and Pepesh, in his usual complaining manner, says that it looks edible. Rice tells them to chew it thoroughly, as that will make it much tastier. Eliza asks Rice if she can really eat that, and our protagonist tells her that she helped him with the quest, so of course she can eat the food he prepared. Pulling out a little bowl, Rice tells them that he also prepared some sauce for them as well. Eliza says that she doesn't need any sauce, as she can eat it just like he made it, and then she nudges Pepesh, teasingly saying that Pepesh might need it as he is just a kiddo, referring to him complaining about the food all the time. He gets really annoyed by this and tells Eliza that he isn't picky anymore and he doesn't eat like a child. So they have a back and forth bickering, and Rice, slightly uncomfortable with this situation, comes in interrupting their argument by saying that they should calm down and eat the food while it's still warm. Pepesh then goes for his steak, and he says that he can definitely eat it without any sauce, as the meat has a lot of lovely red color for left, and as soon as he puts the steak in his mouth, it quickly overwhelms his taste and smell senses. Pepesh really loves kinda rare meat, and he can taste the rawness in his steak. He wonders how the meat can still be this fresh when it's red with juiciness. He then recognizes that it isn't just blood but also myoglobin, and he's really surprised by this. He then repeats again, saying that the juices are full of myoglobin, which makes it so savory and delicious. At that moment, something starts happening with Pepesh, as he's oozing with some weird energy, and then all of a sudden, huge black wings come out of his back, but different from the ones we saw him having before. These ones are much bigger and full of feathers. He's really happy with the meal, as he says that the Rice's food is the best. The notification then comes out saying that Pepesh is growing. Our protagonist is a bit shocked learning that Pepesh needs blood for his growth. Eliza is really annoyed now, as Pepesh's wings are bothering her eating, so she starts complaining about it. She thinks that Pepesh really hasn't got any table manners, as he keeps shoving his wings in her even though she's just trying to enjoy her food. Thinking of how she's irritated, she finally manages to get a bite of Rice's food, and it immediately changes her mood, and it sends her to a different universe, the one full of warm fragrance of rosemary, where the well done meat's flavor is exploding like fireworks and rose-colored tornado that spreads all around. She thinks to herself that it's been less than a month since she became an alchemist, but with this food, she thinks she finally found the golden equation for well done meat. Eliza really feels like she's on top of the world, and in reality, as she eats, she keeps slurping and making noises and keeps talking about the food, which makes Pepesh tell her to eat more quietly and that she's the one that doesn't have table manners. Our protagonist tells them to add some rice from before, as that'll make it even better, and we see Meow stuffing himself with a steak that barely fits his mouth. Our chef, even though he made it himself, can't believe that a steak can match so well with rice. It's really perfectly harmonious? Anyways, as he was enjoying the food, Eliza interrupts him, saying that she can't just accept the food like that without giving him anything in return, and then handing him an envelope, says that a few days ago she received a treasure map and she wants our protagonist to take it. Rice takes the envelope from her and says that it seems to be really important, and if she's really sure, she wants to give it to him just like that. Eliza tells him that of course she's giving it to him, as she couldn't find a meal as good as this one even if she had the money for it. it's just that good. All of a sudden, a voice interrupts their conversation, wanting to confirm that our protagonist is the hero of Labarton. And we see some jolly looking guy with a fez on his head that excitedly tells Rice that he finally found him. He then tells Rice that as a thanks for his efforts in stopping the Goblin Legion, the Earl has granted him an honorary citizenship title. Rice is really surprised by this, and Eliza thinks it's amazing that he can get citizenship. Eliza then asks our protagonist about his current level of fame, and Rice tells her, after checking his stats, that he is on 151st level and that honorary citizenship is attainable at this level. Eliza then tells him that that's really high and that he should be quick with getting his citizenship and then just buy a building. Rice is really taken aback learning this information. Eliza adds that besides buying a building, you can also make a clan in this game. Our protagonist then gets a superb idea and asks the jolly man if he buys a building, could he do whatever he wants with it. The jolly guy confirms it, saying that he can use it for whatever purpose he imagined. The reason why Rice was asking about this is because all this talk about buying buildings made him remember the time he went looking around for one to open a restaurant in. He didn't think much about it since the accident made him feel like it never happened. So now he's thinking that since he can't open the restaurant in the real life, he'll try opening one in the game. Pretty motivated by this, Rice then asks the guy to issue him a citizenship, which the jolly man immediately does, and our protagonist gets a notification confirming it. Another notification then asks Rice if he'd like to buy a commercial building in Labarton. And then sometimes later, we see Mount Sun standing in front of Rice's now new restaurant, wondering when a restaurant opened there since he hasn't seen this one before. He's thinking that it might have been too long since he went online last time, but he's sure it wasn't there before and that the place was completely empty. And then as he was thinking about all this, a red-haired lady approaches him and asks him if he's the famous chef Mountain Sun. She's really surprised to meet someone as famous as him from the discussion board in the game. He greets her and tells her that from the way she's dressed, she also has to be a chef. He then says that he was just looking at the newly opened restaurant. Seeing the name, she gets an idea that it might be a restaurant of that famous wandering chef Rice. And then she also realizes that that would mean that users could open their own restaurants. This piques Morning Sun's curiosity, as he too wasn't aware that the players could open their own shops, and the lady chef asks him if he'd like to go in to check it out. And inside, the first thing they see is Meow with a ribbon on its neck welcoming them to the restaurant. Cuteness overload. The lady chef understands all of our pain, asking if this adorable baby kitty is a waitstaff in the restaurant. But now having a better look at Meow, she recognizes it as the cat that goes around with Rice. Mountain Sun notes that the restaurant is better than he expected it to be. It's more crowded than the restaurants he was consultant for. He also adds that as he expected, this Rice user must be a professional chef in real life. And as he was looking around, some of the customers inside the Rice's restaurant recognize him and they are flabbergasted that he is here. They also wonder if the lady chef with him is some famous chef as well. People are really loving seeing all of the famous chefs at once. Lady chef then tells Morning Sun that there aren't a lot of seats available, and so she suggests that they should probably sit together. Morning Sun, still taking in the restaurant atmosphere, tells her that it's fine. Hearing the noise outside attracts our protagonist's attention, and then Pepesh tells Rice that there are some popular people in the restaurant. He adds that people say that they are popular chefs. This really piques our protagonist's attention, so he decides to peek to see who it is. He immediately recognizes Mountain Sun, remembering that his real identity is super commendable. But he's not sure who the lady next to him is, but she also is dressed as a chef, so she has to be a professional as well. Rice starts worrying, as it hasn't even been that long since he opened the restaurant and he already has these veteran chefs here. He can't help but to feel pressured with them being here. Pepesh then approaches the new customers and in his slightly moody character asks them to order something. The lady chef is not happy to see a moody kid as a waiter, so she asks him to inform them about all the good stuff they have at the restaurant. Pepesh then hands them the menu, and so the chef lady tells him to wait until she finds something. And without delaying much, and with a smile on his face, Mountain Sun tells Pepesh that he'll have whatever the chef is most comfortable with, looking to test our protagonist. Meanwhile, sometime before, we see the cooking skill of Eliza being displayed. Well, I don't know if we can call it cooking, but you know what I mean. But the woman is really talented using normal ingredients and making poison and monsters out of it. The purple colored stew, and then some cooked eyeballs with octopus tentacles, and then some purple steaks that came alive. And this green slimy thing with human faces staring at you. Even Rice is confused at what he's looking at. Pretty nasty stuff. Our protagonist gets the order and is thinking what dish he would be the most confident in. He's slightly nervous as the expectation and pressure seem to be too high. After all, these are orders by pros in the business to judge his skill. So, Rice looks around to try and figure out the food he can make with confidence, and then after realizing something, he calls Pepesh, that was holding cute meow, and then tells him to let the customers know to wait 10 minutes for the meals to be done. He's really determined in showing them his skills in cooking, as he's got an idea what he could make to impress them. After 10 minutes, we see Electron telling the chef customers that their food is done and is coming. And as Morning Sun and the lady chef turn their heads to see who is saying this, they see a flying yellow cloud rushing towards them with a platter of food on top of it. Electron then tells them that the boss prepared a very special dish for them, and when the lady chef sees the food, she's really positively surprised, as all of them are the staple snack cart foods like ramen tteokbokki and assorted fried tempura. It really looks amazing and there's a lot of it. Morning Sun is also surprised, especially after seeing the ingredients he used for the food, as he never saw them in the game. Like, he's sure he never saw shrimps in the game before. He's also very curious as to how he got his hands on ramen. The chef's son always wanted to try ramen in the game but couldn't find it, and this dish looks really amazing. Lady Chef then happily exclaims that they should start eating, as she always wanted to try Rice's famous cooking. Chef Sun picks up the noodles and quickly evaluates them just from looking, and he says that they are cooked nice and firm. He also notes that seeing how uniformly the green onion is cut, he can conclude that his basics are pretty solid. Chef Sun also notes that the shapes of rice cakes are intentionally made that thin so that it could soak up the sauce as well. He thinks that there are a lot of details our protagonist had to focus on to prepare such a food. As he finishes with his evaluation, he then says that they should start eating right away. Meanwhile, Rice is worrying that his intentions didn't come across honestly, as he wanted to show the basics, which is the best way to show your true cooking skills. Pepesh then, peeking out to the customers, tells Rice that his chef customers ate his food and are now sitting still with their eyes closed. Pepesh, being inexperienced in social things, as he didn't have much contact with normal people, he concludes that they are probably sleeping and offers to chase them out of the restaurant. Our protagonist is shocked by this suggestion and quickly tells him that they're not sleeping but examining the taste, and so that he cannot chase them out. My boy Pepesh be wildin'. And now we see Chef Sun trying out the food, giving it proper attention. With just tasting alone, he's able to assess the amount of sugar and other ingredients inside. He also thinks that the spiciness and sweetness are perfectly balanced, and that there's a perfect amount of water in as well. Overall, he thinks that our protagonist perfectly boiled down the moisture, and he even managed to bring forth the cabbage's sweetness very well. He then sees the egg and decides to go for it, but at the same time, the lady chef went for it as well, as they both put their chopsticks on it. This kinda snaps them out from being lost in trying out Rice's food. The lady is surprised that they both had the same idea of trying out the egg. She then tells him that she'll let him have the egg. Mountain Sun is happy with this offer. She says that she wants to try tempura anyway, so it's fine if she lets him have it. Lady Chef then wonders if she should try the fried seaweed roll. There are so many options, and it's really wonderful having all of this tasty food around her. As she's almost munching on that fried seaweed roll, she thinks how the butter in it is very crispy and how it seems like Rice got the perfect temperature right. She's so happy eating this that she's humming some song. She also notes that on top of what she mentioned, the savory and salty flavors are just delightful. She simply can't believe that simple fried seaweed roll could taste this good and diverse. They both conclude at the end of their degustation experience that there's nothing left for them but to acknowledge Rice for his cooking abilities, because he is able to bake tasting into art out of simply cooking ingredients. Pepesh then calls our protagonist, telling him that the customers would like to meet him because the food was absolutely delicious, adding that they weren't sleeping. No, Pepesh, only you thought they were sleeping. So, Rice, hearing this, comes out to meet his customers, asking them if they enjoyed their meal. Lady Chef is really thrilled to meet Rice and tells him that she really enjoyed his food. Chef's son tells our protagonist that his cooking skills far exceeded the norm, and then asks him if he owns a restaurant in real life. Rice, being a bit embarrassed by all this high praise, tells him that he doesn't own his restaurant, but that he is a head chef at one Korean restaurant. Rice thinks to himself how amazing it is to hear these kinds of compliments from a veteran chef. He feels very honored by it. This reminds him of something that happened in the past. It's the same feeling he got from back then. In the past, there was a time he received a similar compliment. It was in Miru Korean Cuisine Contest. As the contest was being wrapped up, our protagonist was congratulated by one of the staff, saying that unlike what Aaron was saying, it had nothing to do with luck and all to do with his skill. And the proof of that is that he broke through a distinguished lineup of chefs and won the first place. The guy added that he had every right to be proud of himself for that. At that time, Aaron couldn't believe he won the first place, but looking at that golden trophy made him realize the truth of that. This trophy meant that his cooking was getting recognized, and he was really happy with that fact. And then he remembers this chef that approached him and told him that the winning trophy suited him and that the trophy found its rightful owner on that day. That chef also told him that he was amazing, as that chef was impressed with him practicing cooking with pure passion. It's not something you see every day, and our protagonist felt that he was really embarrassed about a chef of such a high caliber giving him those types of praises. That chef continued telling him that he hoped that moving forward, Aaron would keep his passion and that he's looking forward to seeing what kind of restaurant he'd open. And that chef was Kang Sen-hee. And this suddenly makes our protagonist sad about the situation, as he was never able to live up to that, and he never opened a restaurant of his own due to the accident that killed all of the passion he had for cooking. 10 years have passed since that time, and he still didn't open a restaurant. Chef's son, hearing that Rice is a head chef somewhere, is interested to see what restaurant he works in, but surprisingly, he adds that he won't ask for now and that he'll wait for a bit longer. He wants to eat more of Rice's original cooking, not just in game but also in real life. We see our protagonist beaming with fulfillment as he's hearing these incredible motivating words. The chef's son also asks him if he'll open up his own restaurant one day. We see that Meow is enjoying hearing all this stuff as it cleans itself just like every respectable cat would. Cuteness overload as always, bros. Anyways, so then as they get up to leave, Mountain Sun tells Rice that he wants to send him a friend request on this day, and then tells him that once he sets up his own restaurant in real life, he wants to meet with him properly. Being all excited, the chef lady also wants to be invited to that event once it happens. Now, with more confidence and with Meow on his shoulder, Rice tells them that when the time comes, he'll definitely open up his own restaurant with his real name on the line, and in that way, his own reputation at stake. Chef San is really glad to hear this, saying that he'll definitely remember that promise. They then shake their hands as farewell for that time. In the meantime, we see Leticia inside the game's management quarters. She's thinking about our protagonist and of his recent accomplishments in the game, where he not only went to the Giant's Plains, but also opened up a restaurant in Lumberton, which is not something everyone can do. She's really impressed with Rice. After looking through some data, she concludes that he's been spending more time playing and playing harder after meeting Pepesh. She thinks that that might mean that he started enjoying the game more after he started leveling up more. And now, she sees Rice through one of the screens, and as she gets a close-up, she sees that he's on a horse and he is in danger. Okay bros, finally his horse is back, we didn't eat it. Leticia then thinks to herself that fame comes at a price, and this is the fact fact in real life and in the game too. And now with where Rice is, we see our protagonist being chased after some crazy demon followers, telling him that he's been running away from them for quite some time and that he should stop. My dog is going crazy over here. I don't know what's going on. He's literally walking in the circles. Is he summoning a demon or something? Anyways, let's go back to the story. We'll deal with the demons later. But Rice is not being distracted by the demons that are chasing him, and is just focused on escaping this bunch as the moon shines in the back. The window notification pops up saying that our protagonist now entered a territory called Pyren. So deep in the beautiful night, our protagonist was doing his best to escape the dark followers chasing after him, but no matter how hard he tried, forcing his mount to his utmost limits, he couldn't lose them because they were always right behind him. One of the dark followers named Cho was mockingly telling him to stop running and that they won't fight if he stops. She says that they just want to have a chat, and right at that moment, as the dark follower got annoyed with our protagonist running away from them for quite some time, some sinister looking whips filled with dark energy grab each of Rice's horse's legs and then violently pulls it back so that the horse trips, falling and sending Rice flying forward. Our protagonist realizes that in a second he lost his mount beneath him and is now in the middle of the air, falling down to the ground at a really high speed. He quickly prepares for the impact and then crashes to the ground, spinning and tumbling down the path for a significant distance. Without even being able to recover from the fall, those dark whips come after him again, grabbing him by his hands and his waist and then quickly lifting him up so that Rice, still in pain from the devastating fall, could face his evil enemies. The dark follower Cho tells him that he just didn't listen to them and that he is the one that made them do this to him. Rice is still moaning in agony of the pain, and then after coming back to his senses, he asks them why they keep chasing after him. The dark follower Cho mockingly pretends not to be able to hear him as he's too far away, and the other dark follower called Muscle next to her says that they should just kill him quickly instead of leaving him that way. And then Aegis shows up, but this time as a dark follower changed in appearance. I mean, we could have guessed that this would happen. The dude was on a killing rampage and griefing rampage the whole time. So he then comes closer to our protagonist and tells him that he is surprised that Rice would go around Pyren without any fear, adding that means that Rice thinks he's strong enough not to fear them, the dark followers of the demon. Our protagonist sees who it is and he's really surprised, especially by the change of his looks, as now Aegis looks like a proper dark follower he encountered before, with the darkened skin, reddish eyes and devil's horns. Aegis, seeing Rice's shocked face, starts maniacally laughing, and then he says that it was definitely a great thing that he became a dark follower, since he gets to see his face like that. He continues saying that the only occupation that can become a murderer by profession is dark follower, and this means that he can kill players as he wishes, which is why he thinks this is a perfect occupation for him. And Aegis says this with real conviction. I'm not gonna lie, bros, if I was playing a video game, I would also probably choose to become a dark follower, so I would be justified to kill and grief other players. It was always so fun to grief other players in MMORPGs. Do you bros do it when you play the MMORPGs, or am I just a toxic guy when playing video games? Anyways, back to the story. As he was talking, Rice was thinking of how Aegis definitely looks like he got a lot stronger than before and wonders if there's any chance for him to win. And knowing that he has to start somewhere, he uses his ability, the weak point, to see if Aegis is still at a level our protagonist can handle, and to his great relief, as he uses the ability, he immediately finds Aegis' weak point. But even though he's pretty confident that he could face Aegis and probably defeat him, there's now 3 of them, and that changes the situation as he won't be able to handle all 3 of them. Understanding this situation better now, he loses a bit of hope and starts wishing that there would be someone that could help him with this predicament. But quickly to his mind rushes an idea of who could help him, and so he immediately calls Pepe and asks him if he could help him. Pepesh, confidently smiling, says that he can. Aegis, seeing Pepesh there, gets a bit worried and starts shouting, asking our protagonist what kind of trick is he trying to pull on him. And then Pepesh starts flying towards our protagonist, summoning up a spell called Blood Sacrifice Rampage, where his hands glow pinkish, and as soon as he touches the back of Rice, our protagonist's main stats go up by 50%, and the notification lets him know that this boost will last for about 10 seconds. Rice can feel the new charge of energy running through his entire body. He then quickly pulls the dark whips in the opposite direction, breaking their spell and getting free from it. Cho is astonished by this, and she tells Aegis, now slightly panicking, that our protagonist broke it with sheer strength, which is crazy since Aegis told him that those things were basically indestructible. Aegis now seems to take the situation more seriously, saying that Rice learned how to use his allies' skills. Rice is now charging at them in his full combat mode with his snow white armor on and his powerful blades in each hand. He looks like he's determined to come out of this battle as a winner, and there's a huge clash between Rice and Aegis, and their swords meet each other, sending a big blast wave from the impact of the blades clashing. Aegis is all fired up for a fight, and our protagonist, upon trying out Aegis, realizes that his power is definitely higher than the last time he saw him, because he is much stronger than before. As he was fighting Aegis, Rice sends Electron and Meow to fight the other two dark followers, and boy do Electron and Meow look fierce. The other dark followers don't seem troubled with these cute little balls of fluff coming at them. Aegis, now charging up more of the dark energy in a maniacal tone, tells Rice that he's really thrilled that he gets to face a strong opponent finally. As for the game to be fun, the opponent needs to be strong. He wants our protagonist to come at him with a full force, and I couldn't disagree more with this, because there is no better feeling than when you outgear and outlevel someone and just insta-kill them. Like, I don't want to fair fights in video games. I want to own everybody in seconds. Okay, no more random mumbling, back to the story. Rice knows that the longer he drags this out, the more bothersome it will be, so he needs to finish this quickly. First, he'll find his weak point, and each time he attacks he gets rebuffed, but Aegis defends it. He realizes that he's getting pushed back. Rice doesn't understand why this is, as he's got his stats increased significantly, so they should at least be on par with each other. Aegis is really confident as he keeps attacking our protagonist, pushing further and further back, saying that this time he'll definitely kill him. Seeing Rice bewildered, Aegis, feeling extremely confident that he'll win this battle, decides to reveal his secret to him, telling him that the reason his attacks are that stronger is because he draws power from the darkness. The attacks are getting overwhelming, and Rice doesn't know how much longer he'll be able to take them. Meow and Electron are not doing much better either, as they are sent flying back by the dark follower duo, telling them that they expected them to be a bit stronger, as they acted like some big shots only to come out as proper weaklings. And now we see poor Electron and Meow on the ground, utterly exhausted from the battle they were having. Our protagonist is hurt seeing this sight, but he has to continue fighting for their survival. Aegis, charging up that dark whip in his hand, smugly tells Rice that he's got no other small fries to help him anymore, and then he fires those whips made of dark energy that he calls dark spears at an astonishing speed. In fact, the speed is so overwhelming that Rice in a split second realizes that it's too late for him to avoid it, and as he was thinking he's done for, he closes his eyes, but a golden tray slashes through the dark spears, cutting them in half and preventing the attack on Rice. Aegis sees the tray flying and is really puzzled by what is happening, and at that moment there is a huge blast of light and we hear the words, "Illustration of light, thorn flower." And then there's a beautiful array of lights forming a powerful energy right above Aether that was the one that summoned this attack with his hammer, and then he sends his attack right at the dark followers, eliminating both of them. As soon as they come into contact with the light, they both immediately signed out. I was thinking the entire time these were NPCs, but I guess not. Rice, not sure what's going on, turns and then sees Melina with her golden tray in her hand and Aether both pleasantly smiling at him. Melina says that she was hunting nearby with Aether, and Aether adds that they saw him getting attacked, so they came to help. Aegis is really frustrated seeing this, and then something happens to his body, so he falls down on his knees, saying that his time is up, and he's not too happy about it seems. As the dark energy, in the form of dark smoke, starts leaving his body, Rice looks at him with curiosity. Our protagonist then tells him that if he keeps going overboard with this, he won't stay still and he'll be forced to do something about it. Rice then tells him that he can get permanently banned if he keeps getting reported. Aegis tells him that it's all a quest anyway, and that once a person becomes a dark follower, the devil gives them a quest. Aegis is a bit surprised that our protagonist didn't know this. As he starts building up his last sneak attack as he is kneeling down, he keeps saying that he gets the quest directly from the devil, which is special, and he also adds that it's not his fault that the target of his quest is Rice. Aether says that it sounds reasonable, but that Rice shouldn't forgive everything because after all, he'll keep appearing and become hindrance as a dark follower of the devil. Meow notices that something is wrong, and as soon as it lets out a sound warning them of the attack, Aegis already releases his final dark spear at our protagonist, saying that he'd still kill Rice even if it wasn't his quest. And just before the attack hits our protagonist, Meow leaps forward to protect Rice from the attack with the powerful dark spear piercing its little body right through. Our protagonist is completely shocked seeing this as he screams Meow's name out loud and with desperation. And we see poor Meow slowly disappearing as he sacrificed himself to protect his owner Rice. The notification comes soon after saying that our protagonist won't be able to summon his pet for the next 24 hours. Rice is in shock seeing his favorite little kitty going out like that. He calls his name, but Meow is not there anymore. Aegis, seeing this happen, gets really annoyed with the cat sacrificing itself to save our protagonist. His plan failed, but he's already preparing another attack, but he knows his chances are slim as they are aware of him right now. Melina, now boiling with fury, tells Aegis that he's really pathetic. She questions him having fun by harassing others and the reason he became the dark follower just so that he could do all this. As she prepares an attack of her own, she tells him that it's enough as they lost all of their patience for him and that they won't put up anymore. Aegis just ridicules her for saying these things, provoking them to do something instead of just threatening him. And as he was saying this with his usual smug smile, something quickly passes by him in a flash, and before he could even realize, he was already attacked by Rice that was now standing coldly behind him, waiting for the strike to take effect. Aegis's body releases some dark electricity discharge, and he just gets a moment of time just to notice what happened and that Rice was the one that finished him, right before his body gets engulfed in flames and starts burning with Aegis screaming in agony. He was quickly disintegrating from the sheer intensity of the blaze that was getting stronger and brighter. Soon after, a notification window shows up saying that our protagonist has eliminated a dark follower. We see Rice super focused with the dark blade in his hand. He really put everything in this attack as he just wanted revenge. Melina, looking all worried seeing him standing there like that without moving, asks him if he's alright, and Aether adds that Rice is probably too tired from the attack he suffered earlier and that he's got some potions for him that Aether got while he was hunting, and these potions will help him recover quickly. But our protagonist is still standing there, silently facing the other direction, so Aether and Melina offer him some other things, like energy potion and mana potion, just looking for any type of response from him. And now we finally see Rice's face, and the guy's mourning his pet as he's crying like a little child calling his pet's name. And then he starts sobbing, crying his eyes out, apologizing to Meow that had to take the attack in his stead and how he could have saved with him. Melina and Aether, hearing him like this, are slightly taken aback, and then they try consoling him, telling him that everything will be alright, as Meow will come back just after a day. But Rice is just feeling sad, and he's not listening to reason. He just wants to mourn little Meow for his brave sacrifice. Sometimes later, as our protagonist finished with his mourning, he together with Melina and Aether now enter deeper into the town of Pyron. Rice wonders if this was originally an empty town, as it has houses on the streets and everything a town where people would normally live. But now this looks completely abandoned and the vibe is just too dreary. It's like a ghost town. They even see a Grim Reaper looking thing walking around. Melina wonders if this really is the place that our protagonist is looking for. He tells them that according to the treasure map he's got, this is the exact place he needs to be at. Melina is curious about what type of treasure he is looking for, but Rice tells them that the map says nothing about the type of treasure or any other information on it. Having a closer look at it, Rice tells them that the map says that they should look for the biggest tree in the Pyron town. Aether and Melina are not really convinced in the authenticity of the map and think it might be a false one. It could be leading them to a trap or something worse. Rice, seeing Aether and Melina getting along really well, asks them if they are now closer than before. This question kind of triggers them, so then as they start leaving our protagonist, they say all kinds of excuses, like that they just met sometimes to hunt together, and then they say their goodbyes to Rice and leave him in a rush. What's going on here, bros? Anyways, after they were gone, Rice says that he can now feel the emptiness of Meow's absence even more. That cute little kitty never left his shoulder and now there's nothing on his shoulders. But as he's here already, he might as well distract himself by looking for this treasure then. And not too long after, he comes to a tree that looks like the one that's described on the map. He wonders if that's the actual tree from the map, because it's really big and it kinda twists around, giving it this creepy air. And so he looks at the map again to confirm it, and it clearly shows this big tree in the middle of the town, and this is the only tree that fits that description. But he wonders about the X mark on the map. Then all of a sudden, Pepesh just shows up on top of one of the branches of the tree, noting that Rice safely arrived at Pyron and asking him about his purpose here. Our protagonist tells him that he's looking for a tree that's on the treasure map that Eliza gave him. Pepesh is not too excited hearing Eliza's name, and Rice continues saying he found a tree, but that he's not sure what to do next, as the map doesn't say anything about what he needs to do with the tree. Pepesh, remembering something, tells him that there used to be a thing there that's been saying something for a while. Rice is confused by this, and right when he asks who he is talking about and what they are saying, a cloaked guy shows up from behind the tree. Our protagonist points to him and asks if he might be that person. Pepesh tells him that he's not that person, but a monster. Rice is really surprised to hear that it's a monster, as it looks like a regular person, and Pepesh confirms that it's a monster and not any type of a monster, but an undead one. The bearded guy then starts speaking in some weird language that our protagonist can't understand. Pepesh translates it for him, telling him that the monster guy says that he can't leave this place as he has to take away the 1000-day fruit tree spirit hidden in the basement. The reason why Pepesh can understand the bearded monster is because he too is a monster. Rice is trying to understand what these words mean, as it might be some puzzle that he needs to solve, so he ponders over it for some time. He checks his notifications then and concludes that they first need to go find the basement there in Pyron that bearded guy was talking about, and then they can talk to an NPC called Tom. He wonders who Tom is, but for that he'll have to find him first. And then sometime later we see a guy in a suit of armor yelling his lungs out, and then he calmly says that everyone ran away because of the monster in the basement and he doesn't want to stay there any longer. He then says that he's hungry and pulls out a literal chocolate bar from his pocket, saying that he brought his wife's homemade choco bar. And right as that guy was about to have a bite at his snack, Rice calls his name. Tom turns around to see who it is, and he sees our protagonist drooling over his chocolate bar, introducing himself absent-mindedly because he was too focused on the snack, which Tom doesn't take lightly as he pulls away from him. He thinks that Rice just wants to get his precious choco bar. He calms down when Rice says that he just wants to ask him a question, apologizing for his initial reaction. But our protagonist is still not taking his eyes off of that chocolate bar, thinking that he never thought about eating desserts in the game. Getting to the point, Rice then asks Tom how to get to the pirate's basement. Tom is a bit suspicious of Rice and wants to confirm that our protagonist is really interested in the basement, as he keeps staring at his snack, giving off the vibe that he only cares about the chocolate bar. Wherever he moves his chocolate bar, Rice's eyes follow. Rice can't stop thinking about the snack and thinks to himself how he can smell the rich scent of almond and peanuts. He just wants to have a bite of it. Tom tells him that he can show him the way to the basement and also offers him the chocolate bar, seeing that he won't give up staring at it. Our protagonist is really happy with this offer, but then Tom tells him not to eat it right away and that if he brings this chocolate bar to his wife, she'll give him even more of it. Rice is absolutely shocked hearing this and immediately asks where he can find his wife. And as soon as Tom tells him that she's at Margaret's bakery, we see our protagonist launching off with a lightning speed and thanking him as he's going away to find this lady. Rice is now running and thinking to himself that he only needs to find this lady and be patient enough not to eat the choco bar that he already has in his hands, because then he'd get 10 more. My bro is running for his life to find the snacks. Thoughts of sweets come to his mind, thinking that he'll eat all the desserts he can eat after so long a time. And after some time running, he finally finds the house that says Margaret's Bakery, and he quickly runs into it. Without wasting any time, Rice passionately says that he heard about the place from Tom, and then he starts ordering, saying that he wants choco bar, bread, cookies, cake, but the person behind the counter interrupts him, telling him that they are not selling. This strikes Rice straight through the heart as his excitement drops down into oblivion, and we see a huge angry looking woman telling our protagonist that she's not selling anything to outsiders. Rice is curious as to why she won't sell it to him, and she tells him that there aren't many ingredients and that with what they have it's not even enough to feed the village people, and so she doesn't want to sell it to someone who's not from the village. He then pulls out the chocolate bar and tells her that he received it from her husband, who told him to just show it to her once he sees her. The big lady then tells him that she still doesn't want to give food out for free, but she might rethink if he gives her a recipe that suits the store. And right as she says it, the window notification opens up saying that the quest, Margaret's Test, is now open for him. And as he's thinking about a dessert recipe he can use for this quest, he notices a cat approaching him at the corner of his eye, so he thinks it's meow, but he soon realizes that it's just some other random street cat and it's not meow. We see that our protagonist is really missing his pet and thinks to himself how long these 24 hours seem in the game for him as he waits for meow to spawn again. Margaret asks him again if he'll accept the quest, to which he agrees, telling her that he'll come up with a recipe for her. Feeling the sadness, Rice decides that he'll distract himself with cooking until meow comes back so that he can make even more delicious food just for him. Meanwhile, we see Miri remembering the time Aether saved her and being really embarrassed by the romantic thoughts she gets about him. She's thinking if she could call Aether the next day again for them to go hunting. Now we go back to our protagonist, who is now thinking of making a simple but delicious recipe that would also make a popular menu. He then gets an idea of what he could make by seeing the bread. He then asks Margaret if he could use the white bread for his recipe, and she's a bit surprised by him wanting to make something using the bread, but she gives it to him. Rice then asks if she's got some milk for him as well. Margaret gives him milk as well and tells him that if the food he's making is not delicious, she'll make him pay. As he gets the milk, our protagonist is thinking to keep the leftover milk from cooking, as Meow would really like it. And so, Rice starts with cooking yet another delicacy, but this time it's sweet. He first pours the milk in a wide plate and then he cracks open 2 eggs. After that, 1 spoon of sugar and a little bit of salt. The process of cooking itself is a pleasure to look at, and seeing him work, Margaret says that he needs to tell her what he's cooking. Rice happily asks her if she's ever heard of French toast and then continues with the artful cooking. He places the white bread into the mixture that he just made and then leaves it to soak it. While that is going on, he adds a dab of butter and some cooking oil into the pan and let it heat up. It already has that wonderful buttery smell. When our protagonist notices that it's hot enough, he puts the egg-soaked bread into the pan and then simmers it until both sides are golden. Even serious Margaret cracks a smile, saying that it started smelling really nice. Rice says that he used butter and that she should be careful since it could burn easily. He then, getting closer to his final step, says that he just needs to move it to another dish. Margaret is a bit impatient, so she asks if he's already finished. He happily says that he's almost done and adds that she can use any syrup she wants, but that he recommends maple syrup. He then sprinkles on some sugar, and a few moments later, the French toast Rice's style are done and they look absolutely stunning. As she could not wait any longer, Margaret digs right in and gives Rice's toast a bite. And as soon as she tries it, the beautiful taste makes her realize that Rice can't be just any person. She tells him that this indeed is an excellent recipe, showing him her approval with a thumbs up. And right then, our protagonist gets a notification telling him that he completed the quest. And as he is enjoying his own toast, he gets a stream of notifications telling him that he got a bunch of different rewards because of completing the quest successfully, like getting a high quality choco bar, and then a new accomplishment has been recorded in history book, and that Michelin's interest grew by about 5%, and finally he got a pretty special achievement that allows him to now be able to buy items from the bakery. A bit later, we see our protagonist walking towards Tom and telling him that he just came back from his wife's bakery. Tom, recognizing Rice, asks him if she gave him any chocolate bars. Our protagonist tells him that she did and that he also passed her recipe test. Tom is really surprised by this, saying that his wife must have really liked it, as she's not an easy woman to please. Tom then hits his spear to the ground as a way to draw Rice's attention to him, and with a confident smile, tells him that he'll answer his questions about the basement that he had for him earlier. He then tells Rice that he can go in this way, showing him some underground passage. As our protagonist looks down the endless staircases descending down, Tom warns him, telling him that there are dangerous monsters down there and that he should be careful. But Rice is determined and ready to go in, as he really wants to find that spirit of the 1000-day fruit tree. A bit later, we see Rice inside the nasty looking underground tunnels as the noises keep coming from every side. Rice then says that it took a while because of the zombies that he had to face earlier, but that they made a pretty realistic basement down there. He thinks it's pretty cool, but he also wishes there wouldn't be such a pungent smell. After a few turns, he ends up running into a passageway and decides to go that way. He peeks in and then hears some sounds coming from the inside. As he gets a better look, he sees a hog-looking creature and he draws its attention by stepping onto something that makes a loud sound. The hog guy turns towards our protagonist. Now that he saw it, Rice thinks that this might be a mob boss and then asks him if he woke him up. Hog starts slowly turning its entire body towards Rice, and our protagonist, in an attempt to defuse the situation, asks him if they should maybe first talk. Hog definitely shows his lack of interest in any conversations as he charges at Rice. Rice starts panicking seeing this huge creature rushing that fast towards him, and our protagonist is thinking if it already came to this and he can't prevent them fighting, he might as well try and smoothly catch it. He then goes into a full battle mode. He has to take him down quickly, as its meat will get spoiled if it moves around too much, and Rice can have none of that. The sole motivator for him right there is if he catches it properly, he'll be able to make samgyeopsal. And a bit later, we see that big hog stood no chance against our protagonist. He's already getting turned into food as Rice is roasting its meat. Since he's got no rice this time, he uses lettuce, which he first shakes off to get the water off of it, and then he puts 2 pieces of meat on top. Next, he puts some delicious marinated chives and pieces of slightly grilled garlic. And now to finish it off, he puts some samjang, and voila, it's time to eat. He tries to take a bite of it, but he couldn't resist putting the whole thing in his mouth, and as soon as he closed his mouth, he felt the overwhelming delicious texture. It's too dramatic, as he feels like nothing else besides this food exists in the world. He's all alone with it. Everything else compared to it is insignificant. And this is what a perfect samgyeopsal wrap can make you feel. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. He even gets a notification telling him that his basic stats go up. As our protagonist was thinking of wrapping some of it for later, we see that a little shiny ball of light comes out of the hog's body and then goes to Rice. The light lingers there for a moment as Rice is thinking about how samgyeopsal will always be a good choice, and comes down to our protagonist's hand. Rice notices a weird sensation going through his body and then looks at his hand to see what's going on. There in his hand is sitting that ball of light, now even pulsating with energy, and the notification pops up saying that he acquired the spirit of a 1,000-day fruit tree. This makes Rice really happy about the situation, as he can now relax and eat more of the food without worrying about looking for that spirit. As eating is his priority and there are no 2 ways about it, he can't just believe that the spirit was inside that hog's body. Sometimes later, we see our protagonist coming out of that basement and calling the sleeping Tom now. Tom asks if he found it, and Rice tells him that he just came from capturing the monster in the basement. Tom is really happy hearing that Rice completed the quest, and our protagonist tells him that he can be relieved now as there's no monsters in the basement anymore. Tom then says that their town burdened Rice in various ways, but Rice, in his typical humble way, tells him that he doesn't need to mention it and thanks him for his help. And then he gets a notification telling him that he completed the basement quest and gets some magic stones as a reward. And now we see our protagonist in front of that big old tree. He approaches it thinking to himself that this must be that 1,000-day fruit tree, and wonders if this dead tree can really be revived with just this ball of light. He then takes out the ball of light and starts thinking of how he could do it, and if he needs to just bring it close to the tree. And right then, that bearded guy comes out from behind the tree again. Rice comes even closer to the tree and presses it against it, producing a huge wave of light, now pulsing through the tree, with light becoming even brighter than before. As soon as he presses the little orb of light into the tree starts slowly absorbing it, and the notification comes out saying that the 1,000-day fruit tree is reacting. Then all of a sudden, the entire tree gets overtaken by the light and starts glowing as if completely made of light. The shine is so bright that it makes Rice look away so as not to get blinded by it. Then the tree slowly and gradually stops emitting the light, which makes our protagonist look at it again, and to his shock, the 1,000-day fruit tree now looks completely different from before. It looks full of life with bright green leaves, sparkling trunk, and some interesting looking fruits that the tree is full of. The tree is back to its original form after he used that light orb on it. Rice, pleasantly curious about the tree, searches it with his eyes until he sees the fruits. He is surprised that it already is able to bear fruits, and thinks that the fruit looks really peculiar, with its greeny part engulfing the see-through main plum and juicy looking inner part, which piques his interest in how it might taste. Then all of a sudden, a shocked voice comes from behind Rice saying, "No! What's happening?" When our protagonist turns, he sees Tom staring at the tree in utter astonishment. Tom can't believe that the 1,000-day fruit tree is revived, and he tells Rice that he could see the bright light even from the cemetery, which is why he came in a rush. Our protagonist then enthusiastically explains to him that he found the spirit in the basement, and he told him to bring it to the tree, which he did, and then it started glowing for some time and then finally revived. but he's curious where the promised treasure is as he can't see it anywhere. And as Tom starts praising him, saying that Rice is really amazing, our protagonist steps on something and Tom tells him that there's something below his feet. Rice looks down and indeed he finds something there. It looks like a wooden chest which could potentially be the treasure box he's eagerly looking for. As he uncovers it, he says that the tree had to be alive for him to be able to find the treasure. Rice then grabs the treasure box in his hands and then slowly opens it up, wondering what's inside. He really can't wait to see what's inside, and he finds a wooden doll and a letter underneath it. The notification tells him that he found Marn's wooden doll, which was handmade by Maron for his son. This is a really curious find, but he's not sure what to do with it. Maybe the letter will explain further what he can do with the doll and how he can use it. So then, as soon as he picked up the letter from the box, another notification pops out saying that he received a linked quest where he needs to return this treasure to Maron. Who would have thought, bros? So he's quite interested in this, and another follow-up notification window tells him that he gets some magic stones and some money as a reward for completing this quest. As our protagonist is thinking of who this Maron guy could be, the bearded man from behind the tree starts intently peeking at him. The bearded man then reaches for the letter and thanks our protagonist for finding his treasure in his own language that Rice is now able to fully understand. And as soon as Rice looks to see him, the letter seems to naturally respond to the guy and comes closer, emitting beautiful light and energy. We are now able to see the bearded man's memory of his son. His son was the one who wrote the letter, and he started the letter by greeting his beloved dad, saying that if he found the letter, it would mean that he came back safely. But we see that his dad ended up getting stuck, badly hurt, unable to come back to see his son as he was dying from a fierce battle that he had. The letter continues, saying that the kid put his most cherished thing into the treasure box and that he hopes that his dad comes back quickly so that they can find the treasure box together. But that was just wishful thinking of this poor boy, as his dad was unable to come to him ever again. He died from the fatal wounds he got in the battle. And so, Maron's spirit never abandoned the place where his son buried the treasure, as now the tree became imbued with his emotions and his passionate desire, reflecting his spiritual state. The tree died as his feelings died, and the tree could come back to life as his hopes never abandoned him. He knew that his son had an immense love for him. Rice, thoughtfully pondering over these memories, concludes that Maron couldn't meet his son again because he died before he could reach home. And even after he died, he wanted to find his son's memories, which is why he couldn't leave this place. And this is why it's called Maron's treasure. The spirit of Maron then enters the letter and disappears with a flicker of light. Rice is standing with his eyes closed in front of the letter and telling Maron to have a good rest. And Tom is absolutely flabbergasted seeing this. He asks in a panicky way if that person that was just there was undead maybe. And now we see that some of the townspeople are coming out and noticing that the tree is alive again. They are praising our protagonist for his achievement, saying that he's amazing just like they heard. One of the guys says that Rice got the first place in Loberton last time, which is what you can expect from popular users as they are quite different in everything they do. And we can see that he drew attention from another cloaked person, giving him a side glance as if critically evaluating him. One of the guys picking up the fruit says that the tree already bore fruits and that it's been a long time since it last had any fruits. He then offers that unique looking fruit to Rice, saying that he deserves to eat the first one since he is the one that revived the tree in the first place. He hands him the fruit, telling him that he should have a bite as a celebration for reviving the tree. And our protagonist, in his usually humble manner, accepts it. The people around him see the special fruit being passed to Rice, and their interest goes up as they recognize it as the 1000-day fruit tree's fruit. One of them suggests that they should try it after Rice leaves. Our protagonist then has a try of the fruit, and just when he thought nothing could surprise him anymore in terms of taste, this fruit achieves that. The taste is difficult to describe, but this might be the ultimate taste of a fruit. The sweetness is similar to that of a mango, and this forms the base of the taste. The taste is perfectly blended with different kinds of fruits, each of which contributes to this magnificent pinnacle of fruitness. The scents are also present as a mix where he can feel the distinctive fruits put together. Each time he smells a different fruit that immediately blends into another fruit. The yellow notification comes up saying that this is the yellow fruit, and it increases satiety by a crazy 200 points. Just when he catches the taste of banana, the other tastes overtake, and then he feels he ate a strawberry and then a peach, etc, etc. Rice concludes that this kind of taste is impossible to achieve in the real world. Then he gets another red notification saying that he just consumed the red fruit, where the first one increased his earth attribute and this one increases his fire attribute. Our protagonist is lost in the freshness the fruit offers, satisfying his deepest cravings for something refreshing. Then the blue fruit notification pops up saying that his water attribute increased this time, and then interrupting his degustation ritual with a sound of puff, meow shows up and lands on Rice's shoulder. Our protagonist, seeing his little kitty back, is overwhelmed with happiness. His meow is finally back. Meow too looks at him with an expression of love, and Rice, as he couldn't hold back anymore, grabs Meow and starts aggressively hugging him, displaying just how much he missed him, saying that Meow finally came back to him. We can see the pain on the poor little fella being squeezed with hugs way too much, and as our protagonist was telling Meow how he missed him a lot, some masked guys approach him, with one of them pointing at Rice and saying that he is the person they are looking for. They come close to our protagonist, and one of them asks Rice if he was the one that revived the tree. Our protagonist, seeing these dangerous looking people, asks them to identify themselves. The masked guy that imposes himself as the group's leader tells Rice in a rather threatening tone that the tree is owned by them, Night the Gentleman, and since our protagonist has meddled with it, he'll have to be coming with them. Meow, feeling this guy's threatening presence, changes his expression to that of suspicion and anger. As Rice was trying to figure out who these people are and if he finds their name any familiar, the masked guy reaches for Rice to attack him, but Meow, with his quick pause, stops him by slapping his hand away from our protagonist. Our protagonist then starts realizing